Hi everyone, welcome and thank you so much for checking out my channel. My name is Tanny. I'm an independent author and somebody who just really loves great stories. So on this channel, I talk about writing, books I've enjoyed, and lessons I've learned on my publishing journey. I recently had the opportunity to have like a artist alley table at FanExpo in Denver. It was my first time doing a bigger in-person event like this. I do want to branch out a little and start doing more events, and so this one came up and it was a good opportunity for me. I've applied to a few others that I'm still kind of waiting to hear back about, but this was the first really big one. So I wanted to talk about it and maybe share, first of all, how it went for me, and then maybe some things that I learned that might help you if you are trying to decide if you want to do events like this. This was also the first event that I've had to travel very far to. So we'll talk about the traveling a little bit because that definitely impacted like my overall experience. My first tip would be that if you are traveling somewhere, try to think about like if you know people in the area, if you have friends or family that you can stay with, that's going to be your best, cheapest option, obviously. If you do have to like stay at an Airbnb or a hotel or whatever, try to make that as cost efficient for yourself as you can. If you can split a room with somebody, that's a great option. That's what I ended up doing, and that was great. That made the cost lower for both of us. You also want to make sure that when you're considering the travel expenses that you're also planning on how you're going to get there and how much it's going to cost. For me, that was really just gas costs. I know some people like fly to conventions and stuff. That is like a whole other expense. And also, if you're an author and you're bringing books, that's going to be expensive to pay to get your books there. I would not recommend doing that if this is like your first time, but to drive my car to Denver, it was about like an 8-hour drive, and I think my gas costs were like $140. It did mean also that I had to like take off work Thursday before the convention just to do the driving, and then I ended up driving home on Monday. I don't work Mondays normally anyways, so that was fine, but you know, if you have to take time off work, it's going to be another expense to consider. And then if you're traveling somewhere, like food costs are probably another thing to consider. You're going to have to like eat out more or like pick up groceries if you have that option. And then also if you are going to be driving somewhere, I would just recommend, doing your routine car maintenance as well, making sure that everything is running correctly and that there's no issues. Just speaking from experience as somebody who maybe ran into a little bit of car trouble on the way there, and it did end up being an issue that like totally could have been avoided if I had just paid a little more attention to my vehicle. One thing that I did that was also really helpful, I like printed out a sheet with like all the information that I would need the day of the convention. So instructions for loading in, what my table number was, where that was located. Parking was something that I like kind of put on there and like had a plan for where I was going to park. That did not work out. Parking was a freaking nightmare, honestly. The first day, I think I ended up like super overpaying for parking. I paid $45 for parking, and that was a shock. But ultimately, I just had not planned ahead very well. I was like super stressful just trying to load everything in, and I just was lost and stressed and just parked wherever I could find parking. I was like, this will probably be like $20 and that's fine. And then it was $45. And so I tried to just go into that first day like knowing that it was going to be stressful and knowing that I was probably going to be like panicking about something at some point, and just accept the things as they come and accept the situation for what it is. And I think that that mindset helped. This convention was really kind of interesting in the way that they had all of the authors kind of in a section of Artist Alley all together, and there were quite a few of us. So I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that kind of setup. On the one hand, I do think it makes it easy for readers to just know that all the authors are there and they can find you very easily if they're interested in buying books. So that's kind of nice. On the other hand, it does make it so that you are kind of like competing, I guess, with all of the other authors in the venue. Obviously, people only have so much money to spend, and like for books, like people only have so much time to read, and so they're not necessarily going to be buying books from everybody. And if you were kind of in, I guess what I would consider more of a typical artist alley setup, you would be able to just kind of talk to people as they walk by. And if they stop to look at your books, like great, you can kind of catch them in conversation. And it might be easier, I guess, to like convince them to buy a book if you're like the only fantasy author in that general vicinity. But when you have like an entire row and tables of authors who are selling fantasy books or sci-fi books or whatever, it does make it kind of tricky. But it is also really fun to like get to talk to all the other authors and meet them, and there's like a good sense of camaraderie. It's not like I have very much to compare it to at this point, so it was fine. It is what it is, and I do think that like it was eye-opening to me, at least, to see how well some of the other authors did at like drawing people over to their table and like being able to talk to them about their books. I struggled with that. I'm still like trying to work on figuring out what works for me as far as a sales pitch for my books. In some ways, I think it's helpful for me because I have my table split where I sell art on one side and then I have my books on the other side. I also have like a lot of books and a lot of different kinds of books, and they're not connected. And it's hard for me to like know how to pitch my books to people because there's like such a wide range. And so I think what seems to be working best for me so far is if people are kind of stopping to look at my books, I will just ask them if they like to read and then try to talk to them about like what kinds of books they like to read, just so I can get a sense of, okay, should I like talk to them about this dystopian series, or are they going to be more interested in my fantasy series, or do they maybe want something short that's like a nice quick read or whatever. The challenging thing for me really is when people say that they like to read everything, which I get it. I like to read everything, but it makes it really hard for me to like tell you which one of my books you might be more interested in. And so then I kind of end up giving like a super quick 15-second sales pitch about every book. And I'm not really sure how effective that is. Honestly, I would love to get more ideas from people in the comments. If you have any ideas or strategies or tips, that would be great, because I'm feeling kind of lost on that part. I also think it's like a weird, unique situation for me to have like the art stuff too, because a lot of times people will just stop to look at the art and then not really see the books. And because I guess for me personally, like my writing is a lot more important to me than my art, I do prefer to sell more of the books, but it's nice to have the art stuff there. That's ultimately what helps me make back my table fee. I ended up adjusting my pricing for this event because I did do like a little bit of a discount when people bought the bundles that had my series. It wasn't a huge discount, but it was enough to like make it worth it for people to buy the bundle. And I actually ended up selling out of the paperback bundles of my young adult fantasy series. And then I also did a discount on my stickers and my art prints. And I think if you can do some kind of deal for people that encourages them to buy more, that's helpful. So for like my prints, I marked them all up a little bit compared to what I have been selling them for. And then I did like a buy two, get one free kind of deal. And then with my stickers, I have those priced at like $3 each. And then if people buy 4, then they get 4 for $10. And if you're gonna do deals like that, I would definitely recommend that you both label the deal, like label your products or your pricing sign or whatever with that discount, and make sure to mention it as people are going through your products, just to make them aware that they do get a better deal if they go ahead and buy multiple. And especially because like prints and stickers specifically, or like an entire series of books, people are, I guess, more likely or more inclined to buy multiples of those anyways. It's also a really good idea to practice your table display before you get there. And as far as table displays go, I do think it's helpful to have like some kind of vertical element to your display, or that you have like a vertical banner behind you or something like that that just kind of catches people's eye, I guess, from a distance, or is at least at eye level so that when they walk past, they can see it easily. One other thing that happened that I wasn't really expecting that ended up kind of being like just a hassle. The cell phone signal in the building ended up being really bad during like the busiest parts of the convention. There were several hours where I could like not get my card reader to work in order to take card transactions. And that was obviously really frustrating. I did end up losing out on, I think, like one sale that day just because the person didn't have cash and I couldn't get my card reader to work. I figured out a workaround with the help of some of the people in the aisle with me. But on your Square Reader, there is an option to be able to take offline payments. So you just have to find that in the settings and then switch that on. And what it will do is it will store the person's like card information. Then it will charge the sale once the signal comes back. If you turn that on and enable it, and for whatever reason it's not able to charge the sale at the time, it will ask you if you want to go into offline mode. And so you just answer yes, and then it will do that, and then it will go ahead and charge after the signal is restored. That ended up working really well for me, and I didn't have any issues with that. My friend unfortunately had an issue where she could not get hers to go into offline mode and couldn't get it to work for some reason. And so unfortunately she did end up paying for the internet at the venue, which is $80 a day. I don't know. To me, like $80 a day for internet just to be able to take sales is it's ridiculous, but it's another one of those expenses, I guess, to consider. If you are doing a bigger event like this, it's a really good idea to bring somebody with you to help you manage your table. I did not do this. I decided that it would be smart to just go on my own and I could make it work and everything would be fine. And honestly, if it were not for my friend and her husband who also went, I would have been stuck at my table. Be sure to like make friends with the people next to you and like the people in your aisle and everybody around. Everybody's kind of doing this together. It's really fun to like get out there and talk to people and network with people. That's one of the reasons that I really like doing these events. I'm going to go ahead and pop up a spreadsheet I made on the screen that shows my expenses, kind of the breakdown of what I spent on everything and then how much I made. So my table fee was $340. That's the most I've ever paid for a table. $340 is pretty average, I guess, as far as what I've seen for table fees at Artist Alley. Gas, like I said, was about $140. The fees for like our Airbnb ended up being $220, and that was for 4 nights. For food, I spent about $82. Parking ended up being $66. That's definitely higher than it needed to be. Like I said, that first day, I just did not like plan very well. Sales tax, I ended up having to pay $45. I'm honestly not 100% sure if that's accurate. That's what they told me I owed, so that's what I paid them. And then I also like to break down kind of like what the items that I sell cost me to print, just so I know to deduct that from my cost. Books are obviously my most expensive thing. All of my books cost me about $5.50 to like print and ship. Some are more, some are less. That's really just an average. I don't want to like break it down specifically for each one. I just kind of wanted like a solid average number. So then we have to multiply that across, obviously, to get the total cost of those things. Stickers, and then like my prints based on sizing. And then at the bottom there, you can see my sales for each day. On day 1, that was my worst day, my slowest day. I think that's pretty typical for most conventions. People are maybe just walking around still trying to figure out what to buy. And also there's just like not as many people there. Day 2 went much better. I did make quite a bit more money there, almost double what I made on day 1. And then on day 3, I ended up having my best day. After subtracting all the expenses, I ended up with $97. I do wish that I had made a little bit more, especially given like the time involved and like driving and all of that. But I definitely try to look at these things as like an experience and like a trip for myself. I'm having a lot of fun when I'm doing these, so it's kind of like more like a vacation. Even though I'm like still technically working, I guess, it's fun for me and I enjoy it. So just trying to look at it as a vacation, I guess, where I actually ended up making money instead of like spending a bunch of money. I mean, I did spend a bunch of money too, but like I made a little money. The other thing I really like doing about events like this and why I will continue to do them is because it helps me feel like I am taking control of getting my books out there with readers in a way that I can't do so much with like online sales. I feel like it's really, really hard to get any sort of traction with online sales and like to market your book to people online. There's just like so much out there and it's impossible sometimes to like gain any attention, it feels like. Doing events like this, even though they are a big investment up front, they're just really fun. And like I love being able to connect with people on kind of a one-on-one level. And like, even if they don't buy anything from me, like I had some of the best conversations with people about like stories that I'm interested in and like TV shows that I'm interested in and like based on the fan art that I make and things like that, that like I don't get to have those conversations with people very much, you know, on a day-to-day level. So it was really, really fun to like be able to do that. And yeah, just like that sense of like self-control. That's part of the reason that I self-publish in the first place, is because I want to have control over the work that I put out there. Those are my experiences about FanExpo in Denver. I am, again, looking at doing more events like this in the future, and I'm sure I will have a lot more to learn. But if you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them below. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video, and I hope you have a fantastic day. I'll see you next time. Bye.